Welcome to Short Movie Channel. The movie begins with Maya, a Romanian refugee who worked in a military hospital in Greece during World War II. After the war ended, she and her husband, Dr. Lewis, moved to America and had their son, Patrick. One day, Maya is sitting in the garden playing with her son when she suddenly sees someone who looks suspicious. She feels like she has seen him before. She gets up and starts walking after him to get a closer look. But he keeps walking, and she loses sight of him. She eventually forgets about it. The next day, Lewis agrees to take their son to school, and Maya will pick him up later. Before that, she stops by the market. While there, she sees the same man again and gets a strange feeling inside her. She feels an urge to see his face up close, so she starts following him again. She watches him until he returns home and continues to observe him until she finally sees his face. The moment she does, she freezes in shock and fear. It's clear that there is a dark past connecting her to this man. She rushes home, but when she gets there, she realizes she completely forgot to pick up her son from school. He had to wait there for a long time until Lewis went to get him. When Lewis asks where she was, she lies and says she was with a friend, lost track of time, and forgot. But Lewis knows she's not telling the truth. He can see the fear and tension on her face. Still, he decides not to push her and lets it go. The next day, Maya goes back to wait for the man she had been watching outside his workplace. We learn that his name is Thomas. She waits until he finishes work and is about to leave. At that moment, she pulls over her car and pretends it broke down. When Thomas walks by, she asks for his help. He tries to assist her, but suddenly, without warning, she pulls out a hammer, knocks him unconscious, ties him up, and puts him in her car trunk. Then, she drives to a remote location where there's a hole in the ground, intending to kill him and bury his body there. She opens the trunk, pulls him out, and takes out a gun to shoot him. But Thomas starts begging for his life, telling her that he has a family and kids and that he never did anything to her. Maya hesitates. She can't bring herself to do it. Instead, she decides to go home and tell Lewis everything, hoping he will help her. She leaves Thomas tied up in the trunk and goes to talk to her husband. When they are alone, Maya finally opens up to Lewis. She tells him that during the war, Romania handed over a large number of its people to Nazi concentration camps. She and her sister were among those taken. In the camps, they experienced unimaginable horrors until Russian forces arrived and fought the Nazis. In the chaos, Maya, her sister, and a group of other women took the opportunity to escape. As they were making their way back home, a group of Nazi soldiers attacked them, killing many and torturing the rest. Maya was raped, and her sister was murdered by these soldiers. She has never been able to move past that night, and it left her with deep psychological trauma. Now, after all these years, she has come face to face with one of those soldiers, Thomas. She confesses to Lewis that she kidnapped him, locked him in their car trunk, and tried to kill him but couldn't go through with it. Lewis is in complete shock. He can't believe what he's hearing, so he goes outside to check the car trunk himself. When he opens it, he finds Thomas still inside, tied up. That's when reality sinks in. Lewis tells Maya that if she is absolutely sure Thomas was one of those soldiers, they should take him to the police and file a report against him. But Maya refuses. She says the police won't do anything about it, and might even turn the situation against her. Instead, she asks Lewis to help her take Thomas down to the basement, where no one can hear him. Lewis reluctantly agrees. He carries Thomas from the trunk and ties him up in the basement. When Thomas regains consciousness, Maya confronts him, accusing him of what he did to her. But Thomas insists he is Swiss, has never been in the military, and recently moved to this city with his family. He swears she must be mistaking him for someone else. Maya refuses to believe him. She is convinced he is one of the soldiers who attacked her. Lewis tries to calm her down and takes her upstairs, telling her they'll figure out a solution in the morning. The next day, Lewis goes to check the files of the new people in the city to verify Thomas's story. And indeed, he finds Thomas's file, which states that he was born in Switzerland and moved to this city with his family when he was young. Louis starts to doubt that this might all just be Maya's imagination. Meanwhile, Maya is in the basement torturing Thomas, beating him to make him confess. Thomas desperately tries to convince her that he has never seen her before, and that he is not the person she is looking for. But Maya is completely convinced otherwise. She keeps torturing him until Louis returns home. When Louis finds out what happened, he gets furious at Maya and tells her to stop acting on her own because they don't need more trouble. He warns her not to go into the basement when he's not around. Then, Louis goes down to talk to Thomas, trying to get information and proof that Thomas was actually in Switzerland during the war. At that same moment, the police knock on the door, accompanied by a woman. The officer explains that a man named Thomas has been missing since yesterday, and the woman with him is Thomas's wife, Rachel. They are going door to door asking if anyone knows anything about him. Of course, Maya tells them that she knows nothing, but if she hears anything, she will report it immediately. When Louis comes out of the basement, he is shocked to find Rachel in his house. At first, he is stunned and afraid, but once he realizes what's happening, he and Maya start pretending to cooperate with the police. After the officer and Rachel leave, Louis tells Maya that they are both in serious danger now and need to figure out a solution to the disaster they've created. The next day, Maya goes to Rachel's house, befriends her, and tries to get close to her in hopes of finding any evidence against Thomas. She spends the whole day with Rachel, and everything Rachel says confirms Thomas's story. They really did meet in Switzerland, and they lived their entire lives there before recently moving to this city. Despite Rachel's story matching Thomas's exactly, Maya is still convinced that Thomas is the soldier who assaulted her. That night, she returns home and tells Louis what she found out. Then, she asks him if he's mad at her. Louis tells her that he is upset, but only because she kept all of this from him from the start. He reassures her that no matter what, he won't abandon her, and will make sure she gets justice. Maya promises to be honest with him from now on. At that moment, it becomes clear that they truly love each other, and aren't just together for convenience. Meanwhile, Thomas is in the basement, trying to reach the gun that Maya left there. The next day, Maya visits Rachel again, but this time, she notices that Rachel is wearing a ring with a Star of David on it. These rings were stolen by the Nazis from Jewish prisoners in the camps. Maya immediately assumes that Thomas must have stolen the ring when he was in the Nazi camps, and later gave it to his wife. To confirm her suspicion, she rushes home to see if Thomas is wearing a similar ring. But when she arrives, she finds Thomas holding the gun and firing at her. Luckily, none of the bullets hit her. Maya manages to overpower Thomas, takes the gun from him, and tries to see the ring. When he refuses to show it to her, she becomes furious and cuts off his finger to get the ring. And indeed, she finds the Star of David on it, confirming that she was right all along. She runs to tell Louis, but when Louis finds out that she cut off Thomas's finger, he loses his temper and hits her. Then, he goes down to Thomas and tries to stop the bleeding. That night, Louis apologizes to Maya for what he did and tells her that they need to end this before things spiral further out of control. He explains that he asked people in Switzerland about Thomas, and they all confirmed his story. Thomas really was there during the war. Louis even contacted a psychiatrist, who told him that Maya might be confusing things due to trauma. He begs her to let Thomas go so they can return to their normal lives, for their own sake and for the sake of their son. But Maya refuses. She tells Louis she won't stop until Thomas confesses that he was the one who hurt her. The next day, Maya and Louis take Thomas to a remote location. She points the gun at him and tells him that if he confesses, she will let him go. But if he keeps lying, she will kill him and make sure no one ever finds out. She warns him that his wife and children will be the ones who suffer the most from his death. She gives Thomas time to think before answering. In the end, he is forced to confess the truth. He admits that he was indeed with the soldiers that night. They assaulted the women, tortured them, and then killed them all. When they finished, Maya was unconscious after being raped, and they assumed she was dead. Thomas tells her that this incident haunted him for the rest of his life. Every time he looked in the mirror, he saw a murderer, a monster. The guilt ate away at him, and he left the Nazi army to start a new life in Switzerland. When Louis realizes that Maya was right all along and that Thomas was responsible for what happened to her, he shoots Thomas and kills him. Louis and Maya bury Thomas's body. They hold each other, devastated by everything that has happened. They agree to forget the past and move on with their lives. Eventually, they start to heal, and life returns to normal. They become a happy family again. And that's how the movie ends. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.